right? So that's the next step. The third step is that attribute similarity is directly observed. And as I said, it's observed without awareness, right? This is done perceptually. The fact that I'm aware, right, of attributes, the fact that I recognize that both these have the similar attribute of being a cube, having a shape of being a cube, is something that's a given. It's given to my faculties of perception. It's not something that I need to sit down and reflect and say, oh, when I was in geometry class, I recognized that a cube was, had particular dimensions, and this volume is large. No, it's just a given, right? This is larger than this. It's a given. All of this is sort of done independent to my awareness, right? What I'm able to do then, and all of this is a given, what I'm able to do, and that I would just put attribute differentiation, attribute identification is done, P-E-R-C-E-P-T, right? Attribute identification is done perceptually, right? It's just boom, 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 volume, shape, length, mass, whatever, right? All of this is done immediately. All of this information, all of this sense data is just continually bombarding my mind. But my mind, and this is where she's not Kantian, I think this is sort of her unique, this is at least my interpretation of her unique sort of contribution, is that unlike Kant, Rand would, I think, say that this sense data is just like perpetually, as long as I'm alive, flooding towards my mind. But my mind is a discerning thing. My mind can differentiate and say, I don't need to access all of this content information that is, as I'm trying to lecture right now, flooding my mind. What I need to do is I need to focus, I need to differentiate, I need to block some of this stuff out. I take it as a given, I know that it's here. And then if I wanted to, I could discern. There's a number of pictures on my wall. There's a camera that I'm talking to. I can get even more abstract in my thought, and so on and so on, right? I think all she's attempting to do right now is to talk about the conditions for the possibility of the human consciousness to grab information without having to be conscious, if that makes sense, right? Information is incorporated at an, I guess, unconscious level, or a level that does not require awareness. It just is. It's a given, right? If I want to focus on that given, right? Okay, I'm looking at this particular picture. Oh, this particular picture is blue. This particular thing is red. Why is this red? And now I can pick things out that interest me. And this goes back to her discussion of the child, right? I think she was talking about a number of balls that the child might be playing with. No, I forget what her example was. But, you know, the child might have 4 or 5 balls sitting in front of it. And the child might look at a particular ball, and immediately she recognizes as a given that this is bigger than that, that's shorter than that, this ball is a different color from that. But for whatever reason, you know, this red ball catches her eye, and she leans towards that ball and she grabs that ball. What she's done, in a sense, right, in sort of an amazingly ontological sense, is that she's identified the uniqueness for her of this particular ball, right? She reaches for the ball and identifies it. She's moved from entity to identity, right? And insofar as she's identified it, as she gets older, she'll be able to see that this ball in her hand participates in an Aristotelian sense in the function of being a ball. And then she can have the idea of ball in her mind at a very young age. This idea of ball in her mind at a very young age might lead her, when her mommy or daddy gives her a crayon, to draw a circle and say, this is my ball, right? And she might recognize that the ball is in a sense a circle. But then she gets older and she recognizes, well, no, the ball isn't really a circle, because a circle is 2-dimensional and a ball is spherical. A ball has volume, and what she needs now is she needs a more verbose conceptual range. She needs a broader conceptual range to talk about the differentiation and the sizes of balls. So her epistemological growth moves from one of a pictorial representation into one of conceptual or symbolic representation. And Rand calls this the symbolic code. So her symbolic code becomes more and more technical now as she tries to further define this red ball. She might get into the redness of the ball. She might get into the volume of the ball. She might be able to describe this ball in phenomenally complicated terms. Right? She can talk about the chemical nature of whatever the elements are that compose the ball, the plastics and the color and the range and the volume and the air pressure, and so she can get very, very technical. She's still talking about the same thing, the ball, but now she can do it in a much, much more rich sense. Right? And the richer her ability to describe this thing, the closer it is to the description of the thing itself. We will never approach, in Kantian terms, the Ding an sich, right? We're never be able to talk about it as such. But our goal, because it doesn't exist, I would argue that it doesn't exist. Some people say it exists, but we can't know it. I would say it doesn't even exist. And that's just me, and I know people are going to disagree with me. But for me, it doesn't exist. I think Rand would say it doesn't exist. But what we do is we try to make our description of that thing as profoundly complex as we can, simply because we can, right? There's no reason why we need to make it a complex description, but why not make it a complex description? It's closer to describing what it really is, the more complex our description of that thing is. So that's sort of the transition from the pictorial representation, the recognition of existence, the transition from entity to identity to unity. Sorry, I should have turned off my cell phone. And that's what it's about. Okay.